Welcome to Part of the Solution, because what the world really needed was another podcast, except for this one actually cuts through the noise. Hi, I'm Natalie, your coach, speaker, truth teller, and your favorite no BS friend. Around here, we're talking health, healing, habits, hormones, and how to finally grow a mindset that gets out of your own way. There's no filters, just real conversations that might actually change your life. All right, we're back today in the home studio. We've got our guest of honor. This is your third interview, Mr. Creatine himself, Ed Byrd. Welcome back.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, and then I've got another co-host, a new co-host with me today, Joe Cerda. He's a local legend here in Petaluma and gym owner and just not a know-it-all, but a pretty educated, wise man. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Joe, why don't you start and just tell us who you are and what you do, so if people don't know that, they can get to know you.
So, I own a sports performance facility here in Petaluma called DBC NorCal, and I've been training and consider myself a wellness coach, corrective exercise specialist. You name it, I'm interested in it. If it has to do with wellness and human movement, biomechanics specialist. I've been doing that for 25 plus years now. Love it. Love my community here. And anytime I can, have an opportunity to help somebody or take someone to the next level, I love to be part of it. So glad to be here.
My experience with him was an injury. And I always knew who he was, but I had never worked out with him. And I got injured at CrossFit. Shocker, I know. Everybody calm down. And so I went to see Joe. And at that time, he just had a little home garage, but basically rehabbed me and made me truly rethink everything about the way I was working out and lifting weights and kind of aligning the mind and the body within my workouts and how to work out and feel safe and protected as far as not getting hurt again. So it is a really incredible workout when you put the energy and the time into actually learning the body and also like what works for my body versus somebody else. So thank you for being here today.
Yeah, for sure. Excited.
This is going to be a fun episode. Okay, Ed, why don't you quickly just run down and let people know who the hell you are and why they should know you?
I just started in the business probably the very early 80s, very interested in aging, which back then there was nothing really to speak of. But then I got involved in some companies very early on. And the first one was the Don Tyson Company, Tyson and Associates, down in Santa Monica, California. And Don developed amino acids. So they were crystalline free-form amino acid formulas. And one of them in particular was a sports athlete formula, which actually was his number one selling product. It was a cult product. A lot of movie stars and celebrities used it. And again, these were the real crystalline free-form amino acids from a company called the Ajinomoto in Japan. Aji is a fantastic supplier. I think a lot of amino acids today may not be coming from those kind of sources. But There was that. And then I got picked up and happened to be the first guy hired at a company at that time called Champion Nutrition. The name of the product was called Metabolol. Well, years later, they took that formula and they put it into milk cartons, added water, and it now is known as muscle milk. And then in late 1992, a colleague and we were introduced to a paper, JCI Journal Clinical Investigation, September 1992 by Roger Harris and Dr. Harris out of England. He actually published the first paper. He gave creatine to athletes in tea, which we thought was kind of interesting. And he did follow that it did get absorbed in the blood plasma, but he didn't check to see if it actually improved. They didn't test it to see if it improved athletic performance. But Roger Harris, back in those days, he did know that. So Anthony and we actually got a source of creatine here in the U.S., and we introduced it. Of course, nobody believed us at that time. I got turned down by 3 of the biggest dietary supplement companies in the United States. So I told Anthony, well, what we need to do, nobody believes us, so why don't we just create our own, label? And we did. We actually called that company called EAS, and anybody that's familiar or been around for a while, they know that company EAS. It became the biggest sports nutrition company in the world back in the 90s. And EAS originally stood for Ed, Anthony, and Secretary, but then of course, we had to change the name to Experimental and Applied Sciences. And then Bill Phillips came along, fantastic marketing genius guy. Bill wrote the book Body for Life and then bought Anthony and I out. So I moved back to California, San Francisco, and going through the literature, which I love reading the journals. I came across a study that really caught my interest. It had to do with wound healing. And I actually took this and I developed it into a pill, but I developed a controlled release matrix with a drug delivery company. And turns out that this pill, I didn't commercialize it for 4.5 years. We had a lot of trouble manufacturing it, because it's easy to manufacture like 5 kilos at a time. But when you go to 200 kilos in big machinery, they call it a technology transfer. It's very difficult. Of course, I didn't know that at the time. But finally, we were able to produce large quantities. And that product, unknowing to me, I didn't know this, but it became the biggest selling product, which I didn't think it would be, in GNC's 50-year history. So it is the first product that generally and significantly increased nitric oxide formation. So as you guys know, there's now a whole new category in the business known as nitric oxide products, super beets, these nitrate products. And again, creatine was another new category. So, and then of course, I've continued to study and work caloric restriction mimetics and my latest discovery, which isn't commercially available yet.
Intelligent.
Yeah.
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 Can you simply break down for somebody who doesn't know what that is, what it is and why we need it or why we should take it?
And yeah, another question that I have also, I heard you say something like about quality. And, every client I have or everyone that I know that, they're going to places and they're so concerned about getting grass-fed beef and how is, air-chilled chicken and the quality of their proteins, right? They want wild-caught salmon versus farm-raised. So when it comes to amino acids, is it as equally important to find like a high-quality company that produces these? And then how do you know if it's a high-quality company?
Yeah, good question. The first question, what it is when you ingest protein, either from food or steak or chicken, salmon, anything, or if you take a supplement protein product, what happens is in the digestion, it all gets broken down into di, tri, and singular amino acids. So amino acids are the building blocks of protein, right? What Don Tyson did back in the early 80s, he bypassed the digestive and breaking all the proteins down, and he simply acquired pure crystalline free-form individual amino acids from Ajinomoto, right? And he made particular formulas, and the one I told you that was kind of a cult product and a lot of celebrities used it. Coincidentally, it happened to be the 8 essential amino acids, a couple of others, but it was also high in leucine. So Bob Wolf at the University of Texas, now at University of Arkansas, he's published a lot on amino acids and muscle protein synthesis. And he's found out that, of course, you want the 8 essential, but also high in leucine because this gives the maximal MPS muscle protein synthesis. So there's that. And that's pretty much what the aminos do. I think aminos are very interesting. They're underrated. Not too many people use them. And like I told you a couple of podcasts ago, if I was a woman, I'd be taking creatine along with a very specific crystalline free-form amino acid, which brings me now to Joe's question. How do you know? Well, I actually ordered, I think, I don't know how many years ago from a company. I don't want to say names, as you know, right? But soon as I got the product, I knew it wasn't a crystalline free form. It was more powdery. So I suspect very strongly that it was a Chinese produced product. Now, I don't know what the purity was or the certificate of analysis or anything like that. But I don't really know today who. There's a company called Body Health, I think it is, or Body Amino. Yeah. So I think these guys do such a great job writing about. I can't imagine them, but you never know though, because at the end of the day, if it's not available from Japan or Korea, it's definitely not available from Europe because the Chinese undercut all prices. So these companies just stop producing it. So you can't get it. So you're forced to go and you have to buy from a Chinese supplier. And you have to do due diligence and you have to do I mean, if you're very much above board, you've got to do analytics and you have to look at all. I mean, you could spend easily $15,000 looking at the amino acids that are supplied to you from suppliers like that.
Yeah.
Easily 15, like I'm getting ready to do some analytical work and, just our first round is $25,000, which is very unusual, as you know, for supplement companies. They're not going to go spend that kind of money to do analytics. What they'll do is they'll just look at, here's the certificate analysis. But really, I know for a fact, I've been in this business for a long time, and people forge the C of A's. What they do is they just change the dates.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but
Yeah, so it makes the supplement world hard to even trust.
Yeah.
Because of that. But I did see a commercial for Perfect Aminos, and I really like, is it Gary, I forget what his last name is, Brecka. Yeah. And he had obviously a lot of great things to say about it and seems very trustworthy, but it's hard to know exactly where to get it from. I know we spoke last time about the creatine gummies and the Zao versus Sports Now. And so, I guess for the consumer, they have to do their due diligence to find out where they're actually getting it from.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that about the gummies because I thought, it's, because I travel a lot, so I'm just going to get the gummies, right, instead of powder and glass and water, whatever. The first gummies that I happened to get, and I was chewing on them, and I thought to myself, wow, this is not grainy. Or then I said to myself, I said, wait a second, is there creatine in this? These taste too good. And sure enough, I think maybe 6 months later, I read a report that came out, Now Foods.
Yeah.
They did all this analysis on these gummies, and the one that I thought tasted too good, that one had 0 creatine in it.
But it was marketed as creatine.
Exactly. Yeah, they claim to have 5 grams of creatine, and I forget how many, maybe 4 or 5 gummies. And of course, the CEO was quoted as, the analytics were off or something like that. Typical. But that's
was
ridiculous.
Was it the Zao? Because I just bought those.
Yeah, Zaos are cool, but I've kind of like, for traveling, I've now kind of switched over to Force Factors.
Okay.
The ones you buy at Walmart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I got to change it. Well, I'm trying to get Matt to take creatine because
he should.
His brain and just overall health. And so, God forbid he has to mix a powder in a drink. So,
he won't do it.
Gummy would be better.
And I think if Gary Brecka is endorsing Perfect Amino, I've never met Gary. Maybe someday I will, but if Gary's endorsing it, then I'm sure, he's done his homework.
Yes.
That's what I would think.
Yeah, I agree.
And when you see companies they say something like, blind study, does that mean it's like, hey, I put my product out there with extreme confidence, test it and test all of them and come back with, it's not biased to my product. Is that what that means?
Well, yeah, I mean, normally what you do in a clinical trial, you'll do it. They call it a double-blind study. So one of the products, let's just say product A, it has, your formula, your actives, right? And then product B is really a placebo. So it's maltodextrin. But if this particular pill, that's the active, has a certain color to it, let's just say it has like a faint yellow due to the fact that the naturally occurring molecules do have that pigment, then what they'll do over here on product B, they will kind of match the color. That way, the doctors or the scientists that are administering this clinical trial, they really don't know which one is active. So that's what they mean by double blinded. The patients don't know, and neither do the people administering the study. It's not until after the study that the company releases, product A was the actual formula and product B was the real placebo. That's what they do. That's double-blinded. And then the greatest gold standard study is when you do a double-blinded study, and then you do what's known as a crossover. So people using product A will use it for like 8 weeks, and then they have a washout period of about 2 weeks. And then this group will switch over to product B, and then the A group will switch back over to B. So you know what I mean by that? So it's like double-blinded. And then this group uses, which they don't know, it's the active, and then they're washed out for 2 weeks, and then they go to product B, which is usually the placebo. And they can see the difference between when people were on the real product and when they were on the placebo.
Yeah.
Now that's gold standard.
And that's the goal.
That's serious. That's what I'd like to do with what's sitting like 5 feet from me right now.
Yeah, I was just going to say, is that how you're going to run your test?
Yeah, and I'm planning to do what's known as a phase 2A trial, which is a minimum of 100 people. Again, very unusual for supplement companies to do this. Very unusual.
Yeah, this supplement isn't. I wouldn't even consider this a supplement.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Like it's so much more than that. Joey, what other questions do you have about aminos?
It's no secret that everyone's trying to up their protein intake, right? So, for example, I'm at work sometimes 13-hour days and I don't have an oven there. And there's times where I'll bring some lunch and then time will get away from me and I don't have the luxury of cooking a piece of salmon at work, right? So I'll get a big glass of water and want to take a handful of aminos. And, so I'm not going into a catabolic state, right? Where I want to preserve my muscle mass and maybe have a little bit of more recovery for my workout. So that being a great option, right? I want to find a brand I can trust and make sure that, I'm getting everything I need. So when you look at aminos, typical amino profile is, what is it? It's valine, leucine, and isoleucine. Is that like, if you look at just regular, you go to a health food store and get like an amino for after a workout, what does it have? 3 amino acids in it typically? And then how important is it to get the essential and the non-essential? And can you explain like what makes an essential amino acid and a non-essential, right?
Yeah.
Like we get some of them from food naturally, and how does that work?
Wait, I want to interject. When you said that you take amino acids because you can't get to food, why? What is amino?
Well,
like?
If I'm spending 13 hours at work, right, and I've already had some eggs in the morning with some rice, maybe let's say, and I'm looking at protein sources every time I work out, right? I'm always looking, okay, meal 1, I had some eggs. Meal 2, I might have a piece of chicken. Meal 3, with obviously some carbohydrates and veggies in there, whatever. And then I have this long stretch and I don't want to go without protein, right?
So that is a protein, essentially?
Amino acids are the building blocks of protein, yes. So
Okay.
like that, like if I had a handful of those, some could argue that bioavailability of crystalline free-form amino acid can be as good or arguably even sometimes better than...
No, minutes. 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Yeah, that's fast.
So that's amazing, right? So then I have an opportunity at work or in my backpack, let's say, I'm at the kids' football games on Sunday, and I don't have. There's a snack shack with some bullshit
I had
food.
no idea. That's crazy.
Yeah. So if I'm at the game and people are eating nachos around me, and I'm going, man, I don't want that in my body. There's granola bars. Where do I get my protein? Like I always argue this. It's way easier for me to get a carbohydrate. Like I could put a banana or whatever, but having access to meat or something that can spoil or be outside the refrigerator. That's why I love amino acids so much. So now I have a protein.
Shit, I had no idea.
Yeah, right. So like the essential, non-essential, it's always been kind of confusing to me. And what are there, 21 or 22?
I think 21, 22, yeah.
Something like that. So I that's what fascinates me about amino.
Yeah, okay, so can you break that down a little bit for us?
Yeah, well, so the essential amino acids are 8 of them. Your body doesn't make them. So that's why they call it the essential. You have to get it from a dietary source, okay? And number 2, we talked about these amino acids are simply, they're broken down into singular. Or in your digestion, it's dipeptides, which is 2 aminos, or tripeptides, or singular, right? And the absorption, which most people don't know this, it's about 3 minutes. So that's what's great about taking crystalline free form. And if you take them on an empty stomach, of course, right? And it doesn't cause GI distress at all. So if you take 5, 6, 8, even 10 grams at a time, if you did it 3 times a day, right? I mean, that means you get 3 spikes in your blood plasma, and that activates the machinery to crank up protein synthesis. And you will look leaner and more sculpted. This is why I've always said, it would be so easy and so clean and efficient for people that just do this. A little bit of creatine and then the crystalline freeform. The reason why it's high in leucine is leucine plays a big role in muscle protein synthesis also. That definitely is essential. And that's why HMB, we were talking about that earlier back in 1995 when it was really, or 1996, it was launched right after Anthony and I were bought out at EAS. It just skyrocketed in sales because everybody had high hopes for it. And again, this is not hindsight, and I'm not rewriting history, but Anthony and I, we talked about HMB because we flew out to the University of Iowa. And we met with Steve Nissen and I think it's Najee Boomerang. I sure hope I got his name right. But, we just thought, HMB is a byproduct of leucine, but, you got skeletal muscle, about 40% of your body. That's a lot of muscle. How is 1,000 milligrams, taken 3 different individual times per day? How is that going to make such a difference? Because people forget in what I've been doing now for decades, we're dealing with people, like you, for example, you work out, you eat, you train. I mean, it's hard to improve upon that metabolism. There's no question about it. So if you can move the bar with people that are already high performance, they have a lot of muscle, mitochondrial densities up, and their insulin sensitivity, that's why I think taking a lot of the stuff is marginal.
Will it spike insulin?
No. Well, it can. I think isoleucine it doesn't spike it, but it may elevate it a little bit, or the branch chain can elevate it a little bit, but not significant. I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay.
It's more about the protein synthetic rates get kicked up because the machinery gets turned on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much to do to be healthy nowadays. It's overwhelming.
There is, but I really feel that there's really a handful of things that if you did every day consistently, your body composition would change. And, we talked, I think, before on the GLPs, the GLP-1s and the GIPs, and then, of course, glucagon, which is the third generation. Well, actually, it's not. Byetta was the first generation GLP-1. Very few people even heard of Byetta, but that was like in 2004, I think it was launched. And then there was Victoza, which is the daily GLP. Then there was Ozempic, which is the weekly GLP-1. And then there was Mounjaro, which is the GLP-1 and the GIP. Now, the next generation, of course, is the GLP, GLP-1, GIP, and of course, retatrutide is including glucagon. Now, that one really does reduce body fat stores. But I also think it kicks up appetite a little bit. It's kind of interesting. People are microdosing it. And I'm not even sure when they say microdosing, are they talking 1 milligram a week, 2 milligrams, or is it Mondays and Thursdays?
Or 0.25 is a microdose.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
weekly.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I know people are including that with Mounjaro and they're getting great results. And then if you include it with the other peptide, the CJ1295 or the ipamorelin or the tesamorelin, then you lean out even more. Then if you threw in crystalline free form amino acids, tablet or capsule form 3 times a day, and you added in some creatine, you've really moved your body composition right there.
Yeah.
Antioxidants are one thing, but, a clean, healthy diet, no doubt about it. Sleeping is huge, hydration, and then, your family life, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do amino acids help with anything other than that?
Yeah, I mean, it's involved in so many things that go on in metabolism in your body.
Doing this for as long as I have, I would get messages from mothers or even moms coming in to visit me and say, hey, I found this in my son's drawer, and I was expecting them to pull out like a bag of dope or something, and it was like creatine or aminos, right? And so supplementation has gotten, sometimes it was strange way back when it would get a bad rap. And, I try to tell people, well, it's nutrients without the calories. So something like an amino acid, if I had, my sister came in and got a good workout, and then she goes, hey, I'm going to go get some protein, Joe. And I go, right on, enjoy your lunch. And she goes and she gets a burger with a bun and French fries and then orders a Diet Coke. And here I am taking a handful of aminos. Like I haven't had that blood sugar spike or whatever. And I haven't had, we could go down the rabbit hole, right? I'm not doing gluten. I'm not doing things that might cause inflammation in my gut. So what's the better choice, right? So supplementation isn't as, taboo as it used to be. And, like, especially when we look at like food pyramids and what they're telling us to eat on a daily basis, and we're getting a bunch of other bullshit toxins in food. People are talking about lead levels and in certain things. So that's a big thing that I always like to clear up. I mean, it's like creatine became like the other white powder, like for a while. And it's so great now to be in a health food store and hear someone say, excuse me, where's the creatine? And I look back and it's a 70-year-old woman, that it's huge right now.
It's
So
had a massive boom.
it's a massive boom, and you know, and honestly, I that's how I feel about amino acids. Like you saw, I pulled that out of my backpack. Like I'm not going anywhere without my chapstick or my amino acids. Sorry, I'm not. You know, it's like I will be caught. You know, I won't get caught anywhere without those. You know.
So could kids take them, or athletes? Like, could your high school son take creatine, or
Yeah, back then, teenagers were taking it. But I mean, today, yes. I mean, I think a lot of teenagers are taking creatine.
Mhm.
Like if you go to any university, if they have a student body of like around 10,000 or 8,000 people, I'd say probably 1,500 people are taking creatine every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, I mean, if you had told us back in 1993 that I think right now there's at least 4 million kilos that are needed to supply just the US, but it's caught on in Europe and Asia. I think today, maybe in the world, maybe 7 million people are taking creatine, but it's getting bigger now because women are listening to podcasts. And I know for a fact the
This
doctor,
one.
she is telling all her patients protein and creatine.
Hmm.
And it's really catching on. As a matter of fact, I was on a business trip and, I, I go to this particular hotel, right? Cause it's near the lab, one of the labs that I work. And so they know me. As soon as I come walking in, they know it's me, right? And I was talking to the girl behind the counter. She was, she was 23. And the reason why I remember that, because she asked me, she goes, "So what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm just working on this project, right, for stuff." And I go, "Well, have you ever heard of creatine?" And she says to me, she goes, "Yes." She goes, "I've been taking creatine for 5 years since I was 18." And she has 3 brothers, right? And I was shocked. This just happened last year. And I mean, here she is. We could never even dream of that back in the 90s. Like I said, women wouldn't touch it,
Yeah.
because of the cell volumizing. The water would go into the cells of your muscle and, you'd gain a couple of pounds.
Yeah.
The more muscle you had, like there was, we went out to the NCAA. We actually got a phone call from the strength coach at the University of Wisconsin. Great guy. Went hockey skating with him later that night at the ice rink there, Wisconsin. And he introduced us to the football team, and we went to the cafeteria with him. And one of the guys, very muscular and lean, that's just the way he was built. And when he loaded up on creatine, which is 5 grams 4 times a day, you can do that, right? All you need to do is do that for a week, and then your muscles get saturated, and then you go back down to maintenance dose, 5 to 10 grams a day. And but he gained like 8 pounds in 10 days, and a lot of that had to do that he had so much creatine in so much muscle that his body had to. What happens is your body dilutes the creatine in muscle, or it tries to. That's where you get the cellular volumizing, which also is linked to strength. And when you increase the size of your muscle cells, it also helps with increasing protein synthesis. Also, the additional strength you get, that extra strength will allow you to lift even heavier. And that heavier weight also increases protein synthesis. And also, of course, it recycles ATP back to ADP much faster. And that also plays a role with recovery while you're there in the gym and your strength.
So amino acid and creatine together are perfect
I think that's a great
marriage.
combination.
Yeah, that's a good combination.
Yeah. And there was a great study. I think it came out, Mark Topolsky, I think it is. He and a couple other guys published a study, I think it was 2003, where they had creatine carbohydrate placebo pill. Then they had creatine carbohydrate and lipoic acid. And the people that were on lipoic acid was 1,000 milligrams a day. It actually, they showed that it increased the creatine uptake into muscle.
Mm.
So I found that to be very interesting because we tried to always, well, we know back in the 90s, there's a thing called creatine transporters. So creatine just doesn't diffuse magically into muscle like other stuff does, especially glucose, just goes right through. But creatine requires a little transporter on your outside of your membranes muscles. So we wanted to find out back then, how can we manipulate the creatine transporters to actually pull more creatine in, which would lead to greater strength gains, right? Very difficult to do. But I found out later, there was one study published that there's a protein in your cells called PGC1 alpha. And when you activate PGC1 alpha, I'm not sure if it phosphorylates the creatine transporter, but that's probably what it does. And then it increased creatine transport activity, which will increase creatine uptake. But nobody went further down that road. And I'm sorry to go off on that tangent. Just sorry. One of the brain cells are firing right now.
Road right now?
Yeah. Well, because it was such a challenge for us.
Yeah.
And it is still to this day would be what does increase creatine uptake in the muscle is the hormone insulin. There's no question about it. So if you increase dramatic carbohydrate intake when you take creatine, you will get creatine levels that'll go higher. But the unfortunate thing is you're taking a lot of carbs, like 60, 70, 80 grams.
So that's another question I had for you. You know, a lot of times, like pre-workout, they're saying to take something differently than post-workout. And so like post-workout, they're saying do a simple sugar. Like you've heard this before, that, you know, National Academy of Sports Medicine would say that chocolate milk carb to protein ratio is a perfect recovery drink ever. And, you know, you kind of cringe over that but it's like, how important is glucose or simple sugar to transport aminos or protein into the muscle for recovery?
Well, I think, you know, with glucose, for example, you have these things called GLUT4s, and GLUT4s will actually pull glucose in. So as people get older and overweight, sedentary, their GLUT4s become far less active. And also they become more insulin resistant, right? So as you know, when you're super tuned up, you just finish a workout and you got a lot of muscle, you're insulin sensitive, you can just drop carbs plus, like that's a great combination. I mean, I think a great combination is right after you're done with the workout, creatine dose, crystalline free form, and a simple carbohydrate. Yeah. And also I have to say, but you don't have to go overboard on the electrolytes. You know, you don't have to go because that's such a tightly regulated system. You know, evolutionary biology has been doing this for a few, a billion years. I mean, in regards to humans, I mean, this has been going on for, many, many, many years. And we're talking probably a million. So there's a lot of talk about electrolytes, right? And very high, like for example, sodium. I mean, that system in the human body is extremely tightly regulated. So you can give it all the electrolytes you want, but it only does so much because that system is very regulated, and it's regulated for a reason. It has to be. So that's evolutionary biology.
So
And
are you
I'm a
calling
big believer.
bullshit on all the salt waters and
No, not bullshit. But I'm just saying, don't expect miracles.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had a question earlier. You said something about lipoic acid, and I remember that being just great for the human body. And you said something about transporting the creatine or something. So
Yeah.
that always interests me. I'm going to butcher the name of this, but what is it? Bioprene or something
Yeah.
you see black pepper in certain compounds on the bottom and they say it helps transport, it helps with bioavailability.
Yeah.
Is there, because a lot of people are trying to eliminate sugar. So sometimes after a workout, there might be people that feel a little off drinking a whole bunch of sugar to help transport. Is there anything like that you feel can help transport protein or aminos into the muscle besides sugar?
Well, the bioperine, it's and again, excuse me if I say that incorrectly, but it's mostly for the gut, for opening up the gut a little bit. But I really don't know how significant it is. To be honest with you, I'm sure some of these companies that are using it. I think there has to be something to it, right? But as far as the skeletal muscle, no, it's just I think high intensity training and dropping down your glycogen stores. And I mean, everything is pumping. All the transporters are active. Everything is. So that's the window. I think it's about a 90-minute window, that post workout, that you really want to hit yourself. There was a company, I can't remember their name. They're out in Colorado. As a matter of fact, um, he was part of the company. He used to be like one of the senior guys at EAS. So they started their own company, and it actually, they had some really good products. I don't even know if they're still in business today, but they had a great amino acid product in powdered form. I mean, this thing was, I don't know. All I know is the absorption on this was like almost instant. And I know for a fact of course, they're smart to do that. So I don't think they're still in business, but that's the kind of stuff that those guys did that right. That to me is increased absorption because your blood levels skyrocket right? And then throw in some carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates, to restore glycogen and also get some insulin. Insulin helps also with transport. And then when you're doing that, you might as well just throw in your dose of creatine post-workout.
So post-workout ideally is creatine, protein, amino acids, and a carbohydrate. That's the best.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you're going to do
slice
protein,
of bread,
not a high fiber,
like sourdough bread, or not fruit.
yeah.
Oatmeal.
They say it's a simple sugar oatmeal. No, that could be like
that's
like there's certain carbohydrates on the glycemic index. Like you want to before a workout would be like a sweet potato or oatmeal or something like that gives you sustained energy. But then afterwards, it's a simple sugar. Like it could it could be chocolate milk or it could be a glass of milk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like orange juice. Let's just say that, right? And then but if you're going to do crystalline free-form amino acids, then you don't really need the protein powder or the protein. So, but if you don't do the crystalline free-form, then use the protein. But almost everybody uses the ready-to-drink right after a post-workout. They'll drink down 40 grams. Or they'll actually drink it during the workout.
Yeah.
Or, because I know guys, they have their carbohydrate with creatine mixed in it. And the unfortunate thing about the crystalline free-form amino acids, they taste horrible. Oh, it's very difficult to mask the taste. I mean, arginine is probably the worst one out of all of them.
So is perfect amino not a powder? It looks like a powder. Is it a pill?
They have powder and pills.
Yeah.
They have powder and pills.
Yeah. I do have the pills. A friend of mine, he's a professional mountain biking guy, and he actually got me a big container of the, so I saw them, and yeah, I actually wanted to reach out to him because when when you open it up, it's very dusty inside there, and I think it's hard to coat those pills because the pills probably have reduced friability, which means the way you coat stuff, you put them in these tumblers, right, of like thousands of pills, right, at a time. And then when they're tumbling gently, that you spray the coating material over it to coat the outside. But I think these pills don't have the ability to tumble that well because they break.
Because I'm not saying this. I was one of the first people to ever try that product, and it came in a totally different bottle. It was white with a yellow label. Now it's blue.
Yeah.
And I remember calling customer service, and I ordered the capsules, and I said, "Hey man, it's like there was literally an inch at the bottom of powder, and I just didn't know how to even use it." And then he said, "Oh man, we're figuring this out," and they sent the new one out. So they do have capsules and they do have powder. So
but mine are pills.
Yeah.
And
you said it too. Like if I ever take aminos, I've had like powders that maybe because the new thing is like there's pre-workout, there's post-workout, and then they do the intra workout where you're drinking it throughout your workout, which I think is brilliant because you're replacing things, during your workout as you're, energy out. And if it tastes good, I'm out. I mean, I hate to say that, but like if something tastes good, I question it nowadays. Because it's so sour. I mean, if you open up an amino acid or, powder, it's horrible.
I have one in the kitchen. I'm going to go grab it. I want to see what's in it.
And then I had another question. So when you were talking about, these drinks, electrolyte drinks and things like that. Well, I remember, I remember thinking at one point, like, man, I might be getting multivitamins, but there's such a shortage of minerals, and people aren't focusing on minerals and how important they are. I mean, along with aminos, like, what do you think about other minerals, right? Like sodium? Everyone's talking about sodium, and but what about the other minerals and how important are they for?
I mean, the magnesium, potassium, and even calcium. I mean, I think. I mean, when I was growing up, there was this TV commercial that came out. It was this is brilliant marketing. It was a guy mowing his lawn. Now, this is no joke. I mean, I'd love to go back into the archives. Maybe YouTube has this TV commercial. But the guy's out there mowing the lawn. Of course, it's the weekend, right? And, what they did is they had his body where it had the imaging where you could tell, the body's heating up and where the blood and all that. So before he's mowing, the image is kind of bluish. And then, of course, while he's mowing, the body is kind of orange and yellow and red and heating up. And then he grabs this thing and he drinks it down. And guess what it is? It's Gatorade. And this is in the 70s. The 1970s. So that was developed, at the University of Florida. I think it's the University of Florida where they developed, and that's why they called it Gatorade, right? The Gators, right? And I said to myself, that guy mowing the lawn, he doesn't really need. I mean, it's brilliant marketing.
He's not in
And
the
look
World
at
Cup.
this.
Yeah, he's not.
Gatorade has just dominated that quadrant, that space. I mean, that's just brilliant marketing. And I've seen this now with another product. It started out just really a narrow niche with athletes, hardcore training. You're going through a bunch of, the electrolytes and all that. Now, this is no joke. I literally, a couple months ago, was at Target and I turned the corner and on the end cap, the end of the aisle, was this big display of this particular electrolyte drink. And I just said to myself, that's marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because if you're in this niche,
it's at Costco.
how big can you get? Oh, yeah.
Everyone was coming to
Yeah.
bring it in. I remember originally I would look at the product. I'd always say, bring it in to me, and I'd take a look at it and I go, man, there's like 30 grams of sugar. So it could replace some of the things you've lost.
Yeah.
And like you said, like a kid, a lot of these products like Gatorade, for example, not going to knock it. Like great for a 10-year-old kid who's playing soccer and, and doesn't care about how much sugar and they're going to burn it off. But for an adult, you're spinning that thing around and going 26 grams of sugar. And that to me was strange about this product. Since then, that was probably a major complaint. And now they have sugar-free versions. But yeah, adults don't want to be taking in all that sugar along with whatever it is else they're trying to get.
Yeah.
Well, and off the topic too, when it's sugar-free, that means there's other bullshit in it that I don't want.
Right. Yeah, the synthetic sweeteners and all this. Yeah. And most of these protein, RTDs, they all have it. Even the powders.
Yeah.
It's hard to make a protein powder taste because, I've heard many people say this over the years, and if it doesn't taste good, people just seem to drift away and stop buying it.
I don't want to do something that tastes nasty.
Right.
Like a little bit like those Zao chews. They're not that great.
They're not, no.
That good, but they're okay. It's enough to just chew it and get it down. But if I buy a protein powder and it tastes like shit, I'm not drinking it.
You should try Force Factors. And again, I don't have, as you know, I have nothing to do with any of these companies.
Yeah.
They have no idea that I'm mentioning it. Because I heard about these guys. Both of them were from Harvard.
Yeah.
The guys who started Force Factors.
Well, I just want my husband to take it so that he can.
Yeah, the chewables, piece of cake. No pun intended.
For sure. Well, so earlier we were talking about the amino acids and the creatine, and I want to just quickly touch on what creatine does for brain health and for overall health in the body and the mind. So can you just kind of touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, well, creatine, as you know, it gets into the muscle, obviously, and it helps recycle ADP, which is the breakdown of ATP, right? So the reason why you go from ATP down to ADP is you are burning the energy. You're using it. You're working out, right? So what creatine does, by loading up the muscle, you can recycle the ADP back to ATP faster. So that's what the thing is with the brain. Mm-hmm. Now, your brain is not actually out there, doing, you're not at the gym lifting and your neurons are contracting. But the brain consumes an extraordinary amount of ATP. I mean, it is everything in your body is ATP dependent, the energy molecule, right? But your brain has, and where you produce ATP is in the little compartment called mitochondria, right? So in your brain, you have about 86 trillion mitochondrial compartments. That's extraordinary. And this is why when you breathe in oxygen and your food, 20% of that goes and is utilized by the brain to produce ATP. But yet your brain only weighs 2% of your body. That I hope people listening to it gives you some kind of idea of the magnitude of evolutionary biology, survival. The brain is everything. I mean, this is the guy or the woman that's running the show. It's your brain. I know people say intuition, but I say that's the brain. Yeah. That's what I mean, your brain, if you can alter the brain, and again, I'm not a psychedelic expert, but look what happens to these people when they do psychedelics. That is a highly significant alteration during that hours of time. what it does to the brain. And people actually will change their behavior after that experience. So the brain is the one that, in my opinion, there's clearly no doubt about it, it is the most important organ in your body. And your brain and your heart, both of these organs are comprised of what's known as post-mitotic tissue. So mitotic tissue is like, for example, if you cut yourself shaving, that heals up very quickly, okay? With the brain and heart, these do not heal. They heal, but those cells will die, and that's it. You know what I mean? So these heart and your brain is about a third of your heart muscle is actually mitochondria, because this guy's working, 7/24. I mean, forever. Well, until, but it does a lot of work, and this thing is constantly thinking. It's unbelievable, the amount of energy. So I think ATP and mitochondrial function and everything that revolves around it, gene expression, epigenetics, oxidative stress, gene panels that detoxify reactive oxygen species, and all the enzymes, the Krebs cycle, electron transport chain density, and the complex 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All of these guys are critical to the formation of adenosine triphosphate, ATP. And it's no coincidence, as you age, you don't have as much mitochondria. As a matter of fact, there's a great slide that my former PhD put together. But let's just say when you're 20 years old, you're at about 100, the level, let's just say, right, for a graph. But as you age and you get into your 60s, I think you are at least 40% less mitochondria. And the only thing that really increases mitochondria besides caloric restriction mimetics is exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And endurance training is fantastic for that. But endurance or cross training or CrossFit, you know what I mean? You put cardio and you put, weight-bearing exercise. Again, mitochondrial density goes up. Anything that's good for you is going to improve mitochondrial function. A diet, caloric restriction.
What do you mean by caloric restriction?
Well, if, for example, even with the GLPs, the GLP-1s and so forth, they will reduce appetite. And when they reduce appetite, it almost reduces a burden of excess calories. Because there was a study that was published many years ago where they overfed people for 3 days. And they showed just 3 days of overeating actually reduced mitochondrial function. Eating lean, intermittent fasting, and exercising. They've been saying this forever. I mean, this goes back centuries.
Well, I've fasted for many days in a row, and I'll tell you on day 1, it's difficult, but by day 3, my energy is off the charts.
Yeah.
My downloads, my clarity, my functionality,
Yeah.
like it is high.
Yeah. And that's what I've been trying to mimic, mental clarity, because you're absolutely right about that. So if you reduce the burden of calories like this, what happens is the energy sensors known as AMP kinase, these enzymes, let's just say, these guys are about 1.5 billion years old in evolution. So the minute you have a deficit in calories, your body senses there's a drop because ATP comes down a little bit. And when ATP comes down, it sends a signal called AMP. That guy goes up and it triggers this enzyme. And when that enzyme gets activated, and again, that enzyme gets activated with caloric restriction, fasting, and exercise, high intensity, right? And so what happens is it actually goes down and it phosphorylates a protein called PGC1 alpha. And when that guy gets turned on, it increases more mitochondria. So it's called mitochondrial biogenesis. And the more mitochondria you have, the better, and the more energy you produce. See, that's where your ATP is made. So none of this is a coincidence. So this is what I've been trying to mimic now outside of fasting. But I'm there now because I've definitely got the mental clarity going on, and it is remarkable. So it is true. It seems definitely its mitochondrial function is improved. You get there from fasting by dropping the caloric load, lowering ATP, activating AMP kinase, phosphorylating PGC1 alpha. Then downstream from that is you turn on all kinds of stuff, which is extremely beneficial. And it leads to, guess what? Increased energy and vibrancy and robustness. That's what's known as a caloric restriction mimetic. And so when I say the CRM, people right away think, oh, I'm going to lose weight. No, you're not. You're going to turn on cellular systems that gets turned on when you literally stop eating.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Like, I think anytime I fast, people obviously judge. They look at you like you're crazy, like you haven't eaten any food.
Yeah.
But I feel always at a
Yeah.
high. I feel fantastic when I'm
Yeah.
fasting. Yes, the mental part of it sometimes, if I have to like make dinner and see everybody eating and I'm not, but
Yeah.
it also, I'm so concrete in the idea of it and committing to it that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And I think that's all part of it as well. Like it is
Yeah.
it's so good for the mind, the clarity. Like set aside the science part of it, just like, I guess control, probably have a minor control issue. The fact that I can control myself to not eat also puts me in a high position, I feel elite. So, yeah.
So, and in regards to that, I have a question because I've always, felt a little sharper. Like the joke was, when an animal hunts, they're sharper, they move differently. I always felt like when I would eat less and I was training harder, I always felt it felt strange, but I always felt sharper, and I always felt, you know, like I had a little bit of an edge. But I always wanted to spare muscle. And we talked earlier about and I had read L-glutamine or amino acids. I can still get that in and not have a huge amount of other stuff that I'm taking in, like carbs or sugar or whatever. So when people are fasting, I know you're drinking water, obviously. Is it considered a fast if I eliminate everything but aminos? Because I've heard different philosophies on that, right? Am I able to maybe do a 3-day fast? And I don't want to lose muscle, right? I do not want to lose muscle, and nor does anybody else. So when I'm doing a fast, I want all those beneficial things to take place, but I don't want to. I want to preserve muscle, hard-earned muscle, right? So am I able to take aminos and still consider it a fast?
That is a really good question. And when you're saying that, I was thinking, because they've shown leucine to increase mitochondrial biogenesis, number one, right? And number two, there's no calories in the amino acids formulas. So if you're not getting calories, you're still in caloric by far deficit.
Yeah.
So I suspect, you can take the calories and you're not going to disrupt that what you're trying to achieve initially with the fasting. Yeah. That's a good question.
All the time, since I'm a wellness coach and a trainer, I'd have people come in and tell me, hey, I'm going to start this. What do you think? And there was a company, it was the only time I ever kind of got behind a cleanse. And it was, they offered a vegetarian based protein blend and then aminos and some other things like tart cherry at night. So there was a little bit of sugar and things like that. But I liked that you cut out other foods, and then you were able to take in some aminos and preserve muscle. The other thing too, that's always argued is the law of thermodynamics, right? In my industry, where people will say, it's like a bank account, money in versus money earned versus money spent. And clients would come into me and go, and some people would say, oh, it's a law of thermodynamics. It doesn't matter. You could fast all day and then eat 1,000 calories right before bed. It doesn't matter. And I fucking could not disagree more. Because a lot of unhealthy people, and a lot of people that would come in my path, I noticed that the healthier people did shut down what they were taking in a couple hours before bed. I always said, could you imagine, going to bed and looking over at someone next to you and saying, hey, I'm going to give you 12 things to think about right before bed. And you're going to stress, right? I always have a joke in my family, 8:30, there's no bullshit after 8:30. I don't want to talk about the roof or the bathroom that has to get done. I don't want to talk about homework. If it's not bringing me peace, I don't want to talk about it. So I do that, as well as I cut down on what I'm taking in. Because could you imagine giving your digestive tract a whole bunch of food to manage right before you go to bed? And then you wake up feeling like you wrestled a bear. In my opinion, I remember, things got away from you. Are you kidding me? You come home from the bars when you're younger at night and you eat a pizza and you go to bed and you feel like, what did I feel shittier from? The massive amounts of food I gave my body to have to digest while I'm going to rest, So I always disagreed with that. I always thought cut down at night and then doing what's right for you as well. Like I tried the intermittent fasting thing and you know what? what happened to me was I would go without, I'd get up, I'd work out, I'd be on all day. And as you said, the brain uses more energy than anything. So I'd be on all day. And then I would get home and I would eat like a starved maniac.
Yeah.
And so you have to do what's right for you. But what do you think about nighttime eating? And like you said, the studies on overeating, do you think that matters?
Well, with nighttime eating, yeah, I think so. Cause you're going to bed, you're not using, you go down, it's a very low caloric consumption. I mean, you're just at maintenance while you're sleeping, right? So what a guy explained to me a long time ago, he says, you go to bed, but you eat a lot of food before, right? Like 1,000 calories, 1,200, whatever. But he said, it's like all these little, electrons are flowing down, like on a river with a bunch of logs. So, the logs can actually get piled up. And when the logs pile up, the logs will start to split off and go on the side of the riverbed. So he said, that's kind of like what happens with protons and electrons going down your electron transport chain. So that's the little chain that these guys flow down to ultimately make ATP. But when these electrons split off of your electron transport chain, they react with oxygen and they produce reactive oxygen species or free radicals. So there's a great book by Nick Lane. It was called Power, Sex, Suicide. So what he was really referring to, and again, this is about evolutionary biology. Power is ATP. Sex is the cells becoming together, right? And then suicide is, the technical term is called apoptosis. So the cells will commit suicide if they start to get damaged and get out of control. That's what you want them to do. Cancer, they don't quite die, right? They keep going. That's an unfortunate thing.
Those
So,
zombie cells.
yeah, and that also has to do with zombie cells. Those guys should commit suicide, but they don't. So they create low grade inflammation in the hot spots is what
Why
they call
don't they commit suicide?
I'm not 100% sure about the machinery breakdown there and the mechanisms, but that's what happens with those kind of cells. You want them to die, you want them to commit suicide, and you want them to get cleared out.
Is that part of why people have inflammation in their body?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they've shown just great studies with animals where, the older animals have a lot more of these zombie cells known as senescent cells. And James Kirkland has done a lot of great work and published. But what they did is they actually removed the senescent cells and they injected it into the young animals. And the animals started to age much faster.
Mm.
So it's real science. There's no question about it. And then someday they're probably going to develop synthetic molecules, more than likely, of course. And these, they're going to go in and they're going to target. And there's different type of senescent cells throughout the body. So it's not one senescent cell. It's not just one throughout your body. There's different ones in different organs. Of course, your subcutaneous fat will also create these senescent cells and more inflammation. So as you get older, there's no doubt about it, you become more inflamed. So that's something, again, what helps that? Exercise, fasting, and a healthy diet. Right there, that lowers. It's hard to take stuff externally, I think, to reduce low-grade chronic inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really disrupts a lot of cell function and tissue and organ function is low-grade inflammation. There's another study that was done by nerds out there. I think is it Albert Einstein or Stony Brook? No, I think it's Albert Einstein. And he did a great study. So they took the animals and they removed the bad fat around their organs. So it's known as visceral adipose tissue. Now, this is the stuff you don't want. This is another reason why you don't want to eat 1,000 calories before you go to bed at night, because those calories are going to get stored, right, and create oxidative stress. But when they remove the visceral adipose tissue from the animals, it literally extended their maximum lifespan. Okay, so that's very interesting. So if you go get a DEXA scan or a full body MRI scan, they're going to tell you how much visceral adipose tissue you have, how much muscle you have. They're going to tell you your bone density. So that's a great thing to have. And I just recently saw TV commercials for a company that, is advertising full body MRI scans. So very interesting.
That's popular right now.
Yeah,
Full
yeah. I mean,
body
but it's
scans.
legit science, though. It really is. It's a great thing to have on your medical records where you are in the year 2026 versus 27, 28, even to year 2034, whatever.
That's basically aging every part of your body. Like, where are you at?
Yeah, well, it also will let you know, like, hey, I've got to reduce my total body fat stores and I got to reduce my visceral adipose tissue. I've got to put more muscle on my legs. My upper body's okay. Things like that. It really lets you know, because if you don't know what you don't know, then you don't know what to really work on, even though you can look in the mirror and get a decent idea.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool having all these reports
Yeah,
and
definitely.
really, look at it and go, okay, I can do something about this.
Yeah.
And like, Joe's motivation is to keep doing what you're doing that's substantial. I mean, to be that motivated to do this kind of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
people say that I'm motivated, but I just like studying. That's all. There's something wrong with me.
Yeah, yes. That's no, I'm just kidding. What about inflammation and cancer and the zombie cells? Like, how does that all play a role in it? Because you mentioned earlier, like, that's where it starts.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, an example, which I was not, it just came to me, but so I had this great miniature Australian Shepherd, and ever since he was young and take him in to get his little, like, checked up every year or whatever, his liver enzymes were significantly elevated, way out of range. So there's no doubt it's genetic, right? And when you have your liver enzymes that elevated, you have chronic inflammation in his liver. That's where this was happening, right? And I was like, oh boy, this is not good. But there's nothing I could do about it because it's genetic. So sure enough, he started to get ill, and I started to notice he was running down very quickly, like within months. And I used to take him with me on every business trip because I knew, the little man's lifespan was shorter. So, sure enough, about a month later, in January of 2022, I took him into the vet, and his liver had a bunch of tumors. That is the result of chronic inflammation. So inflammation chronically will ultimately cause cell dysfunction in an area, and it's definitely going to lead to cancer and tumor formation. So that's why do everything you can to reduce inflammation. For example, when I was growing up, it was kind of accepted to see people smoking.
Yes.
I mean, everywhere.
When I was growing up, it was accepted.
Yeah. Well, I remember one time we were flying back from London in the 90s. And so Anthony, he's just fanatical about everything. We'd go to restaurants and waitresses would want to just slit their throat because he would I want my eggs like this and just everything. And like, hey, Anthony, just order off the menu, right? He's like, so when we were flying back, this is the early 90s, and you could still smoke. And the guy right next to him for 10 hours was a chain smoker.
Oh.
Of course, I'm further up in front, maybe like 6 or 8 seats, and I'd go back there, and I could just see the look on his face. He's like, oh boy. So it's back then. That is a massive carcinogen that causes massive inflammation, cardiovascular, endothelium, throughout your whole body, your poor brain. I mean, but do you see how primitive we were just 50 years ago compared to now? I hardly see people smoking.
I don't even really know anybody who actually smokes a cigarette.
Yeah. I mean, I saw somebody about a week ago, and it was unusual.
Yes.
Because they were standing outside, and I just was walking by, and I smelled this cigarette before, and it's so unusual now. Well, we're in California too.
Yeah.
So it's great that, but all these things that they used to do, I mean, whiskey and just calories and smoking.
Sodas are the same. If someone's thirsty and they go grab a soda, no offense, but are you grabbing a soda?
This is water.
Okay,
this is water.
That to me is mind blowing. And, one thing that we all know and that I see every day is that people are really doing a great job more recently, like you said, to not only push away the stuff that is causing inflammation. Look at people changing their diet, right? Look at people going, hey, that causes inflammation, or, I'm going to get rid of gluten because I'm gluten intolerant. It's causing inflammation in my body. And how many people just because you're not going into anaphylactic shock or, you have a peanut allergy, there are foods now people are doing blood work and saying, hey, this food causes inflammation in my body, and what might cause inflammation in my body versus your body is totally different. So I love that people are trying to eliminate certain things, but, and with supplementation, adding things in that help, right? Like it's like creatine. If energy is the ability to do work and you're taking creatine and you can get more work done in the gym and increase your muscle mass, and your muscle moves your skeleton. I tell people all the time, like, your goal might not be to put on muscle, but guess what? When you look at a 90-year-old person that's shuffling their feet and tripping and falling because they can't lift their feet, I say, think about it a little bit deeper, and your skeletal system is moved by your muscles. So your ability to move and function and open up a cupboard and pull a glass out, you have to have muscle to move your bones.
Yeah.
So, that's why supplementation, like, it's like this big old chain of events. Like, why do I want creatine? And brain health is like one of the biggest things people talk about. But yeah, if you're in the gym and your ATP your chemical energy can regenerate so that you can get a better set in to do more work and have a higher intensity exercise, like you said, and create more. What about blood flow, circulation? Like, people, when they work out, they're creating more blood flow and circulation, and that creates health in turn as well. So there's so many different avenues to why supplementation is great.
But I think a lot of people, well, first of all, there's so much out there now. I mean, it's absolutely insane, right? With social media, and everybody's a YouTube expert, and I don't, watch a lot of YouTube at the end of the day. I don't really read general layman stuff. I just don't. I kind of stay with the journals. Fascinating. And thanks to like the AI now, artificial intelligence, it's like, I'm not kidding you. It's like, and I bought my dream. Most people want to get like a Ferrari. I wanted to get like about 2 or 3 PhDs. That was I like to go out and just buy, and get that, because it's, to me, I can accelerate collecting information and then summarizing it into like a 10 or 12, 14 page. So with AI now, it is unbelievable what I could do. What it would take, and I was just telling a friend of this about a month ago. So I went to AI. I went into, because I have a subscription, which is over $2,000. And I asked AI to do a complete report for me in detail. So then you can press a button and it will go into the research mode. And it took about 9 minutes, but it came back, very nice report. I mean, really extensive. And then it cited a bunch of references. Now, just because it's AI and it's a paid subscription doesn't mean it's perfect.
Yeah.
But because I'm very familiar with the literature, I can identify parts where it makes mistakes. Matter of fact, I've actually typed back in, I'm sorry, you're absolutely wrong about this. This is what is really happening. And then it'll come back and tell me, oh, you're right. I'm sorry. But at the end of the day, it really can cover a lot of ground for me now. So I would have to say, just in the last maybe 18 months, this is what has brought me to where I'm at today. Because everything you're talking about, and Daniel has been thinking about this whole time, right? And what I realize now is that if you can change brain energetics, not stimulants, not caffeine, not Red Bull, not Vyvanse, not Adderall, not Ritalin. I'm talking about the actual energy molecule. And this is what I think I've learned now. This is interesting. Once you alter and increase that, you'll actually change what you'll do. I mean, things will become clearer to you. You'll move forward. Things that kind of held you back, like you're kind of like, well, I don't know. You all of a sudden become more decisive and more motivated. And that's how I think this is going to be I think this is going to be huge. Because once you're able to get this guy functioning, I always say guys, sorry about that. But once you get your brain to be functioning at a higher level than with brain energetics, and a couple of papers were published, I don't know, 3 years ago by David Gary out there at the University of Missouri. And he has a couple of papers where he's saying that he believes mitochondrial function and brain energetics is linked to general intelligence. And then there's a great study. I mean, this one is very nice. What they found out, people that have a higher IQ have a larger enzyme. It's called complex 1. So again, remember I told you guys about the electron transport chain? It's complex 1, complex 2, 3, 4, and then complex 5. So they found this was a beautiful paper, and it showed people that had a higher IQ had a larger complex 1 enzyme. So that leads me to believe, and this is probably going to turn out, I think David Geary is right about his hypothesis, is that that larger complex 1 allows probably a larger influx of electrons to go down the chain and produce even a little bit more ATP. But if you're doing this from the time you're born until you keep getting old, you are collecting. See, progress can actually compound. And if you have above average IQ, there's no question about it. You can do more and achieve more. You have more bandwidth. That to me is amazing. So see, I think on top of all the fitness stuff, if you can alter the brain energetics, then everything here falls into place and it gets easier. And you seem to go down the track even straighter. Because I have been, around athletes now for, like decades. And what I've noticed is people are kind of like out here where it's like, well, I'm doing, dieting is the classic example. Well, I'm going to lose weight. Okay. Well, I'll see you in about 6 months. So they slim down, come back, look at this. And then I go, okay, I'll see you in another 6 months. And what they do is they go back out, gain the weight. So it's like this, then it's this and this. And then of course, the other group of guys that I would see in my last company, MRI, the NO2 company, I literally was like 2 blocks from World's Gym in San Francisco. And so we would go running down there for our lunch break, right? And people go work out a lot and they're like this, or the people are over here cycling in and out. And I really believe now, because I've talked to a number of people, that I think I've improved their brain energetics. And all of a sudden, these people kind of move more towards the middle, and these people move more towards the middle because they're going like this now. Does that make, it's probably not, doesn't make sense on this podcast, but this is what I'm observing now.
I was going to say, is that now the next motivation for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not you won't see me out there, talking about kind of a biohacking kind of a thing, or you're not going to see me about nootropics. I think that the nootropics are fine. They do increase usually acetylcholine, or they have some stimulants in there, and that's fine. But that's not what I'm into. I'm into like molecular machinery and mechanisms, and I think now I've tapped into an area that is not been tapped into before, which, so.
Can you share a little bit about that today, or is that?
That will be for our next podcast.
That'll be episode 4.
Yeah. And again, that's not some hook. It's just, I really can't talk about the details today as much as I'd want to. Because I think if I went into the details, people would be like, wow, it'd be like that.
Yeah. And I think off the record, you and I have spoken about it a little bit, and it is mind blowing, no pun intended. Like it's some cool shit. It's something that it's serious and that people should want to know about because it can help longevity, overall health, feelings, everything.
Yeah.
So
you took the prototypes, right? The pills. And, when I first developed this, I was not anticipating what occurred, but I think I realize now it's been quite some time that, and I said this, within probably 3 months after I started to dose with this. And I said to actually close friends of mine, I said, if you actually improve brain energetics, you'll actually change your life, and you'll change your life because your thinking will change.
Yeah.
And that was within 90 days. I already started to observe and think this. Is this possible? Then it started to make sense to me because I know for a fact that as certain neurological disorders, this is probably one of these Achilles heels is the brain energetic system is not at the level it needs to be. So then you start to see neurological problems show up. And they're treating neurological problems with these synthetic drugs. And I'm not against I'm not against or for it. I'm just saying, anytime you're treating the brain, usually with a psychiatric medicine, you're going to have problems.
Yeah.
Side effects, no question about it. See, and
So
that's,
this could
again, that
be
is not addressed. But Chris Palmer at Harvard, he's an MD psychiatrist. He wrote a book on this. I don't know how the book is, maybe 3 or 4 years, possibly 5. But Palmer wrote this book, and he's talking about brain and mitochondrial dysfunction and brain energetics. This is an area that they're now starting to slowly take seriously, that this could be, here's the synthetic drugs, but then you got the side effects. And then there's this missing gap, which are now recognizing now that plays a role with psychiatric illnesses, right? And then there's people over here, which are the lucky people. They got good genes and they're still kind of young, right? You know,
Yeah, so this could be revolutionary. This could change.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what it's going to do is hopefully, if I'm right about this, I think what it's going to do, it's going to open the eyes up, and people are going to, people at the professional level and scientists are going to say, wait a second. So this really could be real. And then there will be a pursuit after this category. And hopefully in 10 years, it'll be well known. Just like when we started creatine,
Yeah.
nobody, like I told you, I was turned down by the 3 biggest companies
Yeah.
in sports in the United, and one of them was Weider, the other one was Twin Lab, and the other one is, I don't know what he was in California, and ironically, he was up in Palisades, where the fires. So anyway, but we got turned down. It's, astounding. And now look at it today.
Yeah.
See, if something really is real and it really works and it really helps people and it doesn't cost $1 million, it will become popular sooner or later, and it will survive the life cycle of stuff that are kind of like the trendy stuff. This industry is full of trendy stuff, right?
Yeah, people have to be ready for it. It's sort of like if you were to have an ant problem in your house, like I could say, let's strike a match and burn the whole house down. And, that's going to create a whole variety of other problems. Well, that's kind of like what they're doing in mainstream medicine. It's like you see these commercials, it's crazy, and side effects may include, and you're like, those 12 side effects they named are probably worse than the original problem, right?
Just having heartburn.
Yeah, but what you said earlier is so true. I mean, I laugh sometimes, thinking about, I'm a father, right? So I have kids that, I have to be patient with them because I'm thinking, man, I have this 40, 30, 40, 50-year-old mentality, and I'm trying to project it onto them because I love them more than anything in the world. And I'm like, this is more important. That's more important. And I'll give you an example. It's like if we were looking over here at this 80-inch monitor and a beautiful keypad, right? And then the hard drive's over off in the corner. The kids aren't paying attention to the hard drive. They're paying attention to the monitor. Look at the size of that screen. It's the same thing with a vehicle. I could have a beautiful paint job, and then I care more at my age about the engine. I care more about the hard drive. Like you said, brain health, central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, like communication. Like right now, my brain's telling my body to do what it does, right? So nothing is more valuable. I could use, someone who has a brain injury in there in a wheelchair, and sorry to say, they could be completely unable to perform any tasks, right? So as you get older, the brain becomes so much more important. It's like the hard drive. I care more about the hard drive. I care more about the engine in my vehicle than I do about the paint job, honestly. If you gave me a vehicle, like, cool, when you're young, look at the flames on the side of that car. It's a gorgeous paint job. So brain health is, and especially when you watch someone's brain health decline, like you said, like age-related illnesses, it destroys families, and it's heartbreaking. So a product like this that you're coming up with, it definitely will appeal to people that value that, and it is arguably the most important aspect of life and wellness to me, right? Because like you said too, even tying back into people losing weight and then coming back in and gaining it, and what is that? What do I say? What's the most important thing is what's between your two ears, like your mind and your consistency, a little bit each day, and staying on track, right? Brain health, right? Where's your head at? Where's your head at? Where's your head at? Your body has to follow. My brain is in control of everything that I do. When I walk out that door, what am I going to do? What am I going to do tomorrow morning when I wake up? I have to first think it before I do it. So brain health, in my opinion, is the end all be all.
Yeah, I mean, it's What's interesting, I think what I've done is it's not really it's interesting because of course I had no idea, no pun intended, that there was no way I could have anticipated this. But I think when you increase brain energetics, you will increase cognition. You'll increase problem solving. And behind this, and I don't want to get into these details, but you also increase motivation. And that I've never heard this before, like really. And I know there's a way to increase motivation, and they've shown this in clinical studies in animals and even in humans. There's two amino acids in a part of your brain, nucleus accumbens, and in there is glutamine and glutamate. Yes. So if the glutamine gets elevated, the ratio changes. So here's glutamine and here's glutamate, right? So if you're able to elevate glutamine, what happens is that goes up and automatically this goes down, glutamate, and you change the ratio. And when you do that, it automatically increases motivation. So when you have a social defeat, that's what they call it in science. Okay, so you had your heart broken, right? And you're completely bummed out. Well, what happens is the glutamate levels will elevate, glutamine goes down, and you'll slip closer into you're not motivated. You actually start to slip into depression. Now, of course, that has to do with the serotonin and all this, but this part of the brain is very interesting. And this guy just happens to be connected to your dopamine reward area. So if you increase motivation, you'll actually end up indirectly increasing reward, which is linked to dopamine. So it's like a positive feedback loop. But what I think I have found out with this work I've been doing is you increase the top part of the brain and increase motivation. Then it sends this loop back here. And I'm telling you right now, if you increase cognition, problem solving, you do get memory. But what else I've been collecting data on is insights. So, and this had to do with what we talked about on the last podcast about people should be taking this while they're in therapy. And again, I think what happens is a lot of people, and I'll use an extreme example like PTSD, right? So they will, to survive, they'll suppress those memories as best as they can. But when you increase brain energetics, it takes the brakes off of these memories and they come to the surface. It could be that simple.
Yeah.
Now, to increase brain energetics is not simple, but that could be what's happening. In fact, people, when they exercise, they're out there running, they usually come up with ideas. And I've heard this a million times. And the reason is, guess what? You're increasing brain energetics.
Yeah.
So this is interesting to me. I think this is going to be very fascinating. Yeah, I think this is really
To
fascinating.
just push people and motivate people to be more physically active
Yeah.
just for brain energetics, just for overall health, as opposed to like the aesthetics of how it is.
Yeah.
Because everything you're saying has been my experience with taking this.
Yeah.
All aspects of that, like the REM sleep, for me, I notice downloads in the morning, just boom, boom, boom. More clarity in the morning for sure. And overall, like health and wellness, like a vibrant feeling for life, like vivaciousness, like high
Yeah.
energy, happy about things, like more glasses full or half full, not half empty.
Yeah.
So I'm also a person who's open to that mindset. I want that mindset. I want to attract that. It's part of what I practice doing each day. So it's 100% essential for somebody like me or anybody, and I've been seeing all the benefits from it. And even though I'm not taking it right now because I'm experiencing something else, it's something I will always go back to. And I think it's very important. And I think
Yeah.
this is going to be revolutionary in changing overall health, wellness, education for the next generation. Just like we keep getting better, we keep learning more from other people's
Yeah.
mistakes and all of that. My neighbor having early onset dementia, Parkinson's, like all of that, hopefully her kids and her grandkids, and will know more and more from people like you. So thank you for contributing to that, because that's huge, because I care way more about how my kids are going to turn out than how I'm going to turn out. Like I'm doing this all for them, essentially, so that I can be around and I can provide and teach them the foundations of health and wellness and getting them in his gym, and also, like getting them the information, because I want to be better than how I was taught. So
Yeah, I'm in. I want some. I don't know why you've been holding out.
yeah,
You're always trying to be better than me, and it's not going to
yeah,
happen.
it's so I can get a leg up
level
and
the
feel
playing
like,
field here.
so I can feel a little bit tough hanging out at your gym.
Seriously.
Yeah, you flex too much, so I gotta do what I gotta
Oh,
do.
man.
Yeah,
Well, I brought you guys all a bottle today, so
yeah,
yeah, I'll
can't
definitely
wait.
get you some, and I'd like to get your feedback, Joe. And I just heard Daniel's feedback for the first time today. That's interesting. Yeah, so it just keeps. It's unbelievable. It just seems to be this quadrant of people say pretty much the same thing: mental clarity, focus, insights. I've heard that quite a few times, and motivation. And also there's an investment banker. She's at Merrill Lynch back in Chicago, and she was trying out some prototypes. Because I knew her on a professional level. Again, people ask me, what do you do? And so they go, really? I'd like to. Can I get some of this? Yeah, sure. I've got prototypes. I'll send them out to you. And it's so funny. She said she'd be at work, investment banker, right? And she would get, distractions from this and that. And she said she would try to work and then she'd go to this and then she'd go to that. And she said on these pills, the distractions would come in, but she just stayed focused and got the work. And she told me, and she'd been on them for about 3 weeks, I think, maybe a month. And she said to me that she looked back and she seemed to be more productive at work, got more stuff done. And I have definitely can tell you that was I absolutely, yeah, like I said, in the amount of time I've been taking these pills, I mean, I've started one company. I have another company now, which I didn't even tell you about what I'm doing with exosomes, which are the stem cells, and they were developed at Stanford University. So these are like legit. You know what I mean? You're not going to see me getting exosomes from plant extracts.
yeah.
This is a real biotech company, right? In California. So it's just odd that I'm doing that and I'm doing, this development, and then I'm already in this neurological society.
Yeah.
So and also filing stuff, and the amount of lab trips that I've made is I've done 10. I've flown to this facility 10 times and I've stayed there at a hotel, which is horrible, for a week. And so I put in extensive, but I just noticed I just get stuff done.
Yeah. Well, and because it's the mind and body connection,
Yeah.
like you're more efficient while you're at work, but you're also at work, so you're more focused in.
Mm-hmm.
You're there to work. You're there to get all
Yeah.
of this stuff done.
And I think what's odd about this is that when you increase brain energetics, you actually reduce task resistance. So if your energetics, let's just say it's here, right? And I mean, so on a 1 to 10 scale, let's just say it's a 5. But when you move it up to a 7, all of a sudden that task that you've been putting off, it's like, oh yeah, I could do it. And you just do it.
Yeah.
And I've had people tell me all the way from, and this is funny, house cleaning, dishes. And one guy, he was a diabetic, and this was way over a year ago. And he said Monday, he said to himself, I need to mow the lawn. Tuesday, I need to mow the lawn. And guess what? He started taking my pills on Monday, right? And then on Wednesday, he said, I need to mow the lawn. Okay. And he just got up off the couch. This is exact words, and just went out there. Now, I know that sounds corny, but that's just one test subject.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of other people tell me that they put stuff off and they just do it.
Yeah.
And I've had 2 professional people that had to sit down and make out their calendar for the year, because they have a lot of professional classes and courses, and they also do traveling in different parts, of the United States and even part of Europe. And they said they dreaded doing that. Every single year they dreaded it. It's during the holidays too, where they have to do it. And they said on these pills, they said, yeah, I need to do this. They sat down and like about 5 hours just went by and they were done.
Yeah. So
And they intentionally told me that this was unusual.
Yeah, because it gets rid of that avoidant tendency that a lot of us have.
It's energetics.
Yeah.
And again, it's not a stimulant. So it's not like you're drinking like 2 Red Bulls or 3, which that's not what it is.
But that's messy too. I
Yeah.
don't think that makes you more efficient. That just puts more
Exactly.
caffeine in the body. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean you're going to be more efficient.
Right. Yeah.
You're talking brain science. You're
Yeah.
talking the energetics. This is a completely
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I'm talking about more about producing what is required to elevate the brain energetics at the molecular level.
yeah.
That's what
That's
you know.
pretty
I'll tell you right
good.
now, if who is it? It's Rockstar or Bang energy drink. Rusty, who started Rockstar, and he sold it, I think, 5 years ago to PepsiCo for, I don't know, 2.46 billion, whatever. But I would come home when I lived in San Francisco on Marina Boulevard, and I would pull up because that street is a really wide street, and in San Francisco, that's a street you could really park on, right? There's always parking spaces, but I'd pull up, and Rusty's limousine would be parked in front. It was a big, long, black limousine with the big yellow star. And if there was a drink that had the same performance of what I am developing right now, that would be a multi-billion-dollar product,
Yeah.
guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Bang was developed. I don't know if he developed it, but it's the guy that started the. Did you know VPX, the muscle building company? Right. So, I was at the Arnold Classic, Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic out in Columbus, Ohio, every year. But when he became the governor of California, he had to kind of step away from that. But that's what they called it, the Arnold Classic. And I went there. My second year there with NO2, the nitric oxide, is I saw him standing across the aisle, him and one of his guys, whatever, just scowling at me because NO2 was that successful, right? We just dominated the shows. And he's the guy that started Bang Energy drink. And he had a deal with PepsiCo, but it was a multi-billion-dollar. He turned it down. Extraordinary. But he was the VPX guy. So it's amazing he got into the energy drink. I would love to talk to him about why did you do this? As a matter of fact, I know the guys who started the distribution of his drink. It's a company called Europa back in North Carolina, and they distribute to all the gyms. That's where Bang Energy was launched, at the gyms. I mean, isn't the story, to me, just blows my mind.
It's amazing. And, it's funny too, because I always laugh at the fact that, there's days where in my gym, I have 70 people in there that I'm seeing, whether it's a group of 15, 12, 10, a soccer group coming in, and I hear the same thing. And, there's a lot of people, you could tell them, hey, go and order this one thing and start taking omega-3s or whatever. Oh, I don't really want to. I always forget. I never remember. And taste is an issue and whatever. So these gummies now they crack me up, or these drinks.
Yeah.
It's just, they can go to any corner store. Like, oh, I pulled in and I was getting gas. I ran inside and grabbed a Monster energy drink or whatever it is. It's available. It doesn't taste like shit, right? Gummies are a big thing. So it's like, sometimes it frustrates the hell out of me because it's like, watching someone you care about. Again, back to my kids, wanting my kid to have the payoff of something, but not be willing to put in the work or have the discipline, right? So that's the hard part about some of these things. Like, something that can enhance your brain, like you said, that's, energy is the ability to do work. I've never even heard someone say energetics, like, and use that terminology, brain energetics, but it's the brain is the hard drive. So like you said, it doesn't sound corny or silly to me. Like there's times where you're sitting there and, you're putting something off and then just go, right? I mean, look what I do for a living, right? I motivate people. People have an appointment with me. They don't want to let me down. They're showing up because there's that accountability.
Yeah.
If they didn't have an appointment, they're not showing up. So, but then they leave and their cheeks are all flushed. They're happy. Their heart rate's up. Like you said, they're more energetic. They feel great. I was just the accountability.
Yeah.
So getting someone to enhance their brain energetics, like as you put it, fantastic, right? That's the hard drive. You get up and you go, and you're not putting something off, and then all of a sudden you're rewarded with dopamine and all of the positive things that come from exercise or mowing a lawn or doing your laundry, right? Your room looks like shit, clothes piled on your chair. You don't even like the space you're in. You motivate. All of a sudden you have a better quality of life. Like quality of life at the end of the day is the end all be all, right? Quality of life. So you get up, you do your laundry, you look around your house, man, I'm vacuumed, the lawn looks great. Now I can sit down and relax, have peace of mind, and then fucking sleep better. Excuse my language, right? The reason people aren't sleeping is because they don't have peace of mind. right? Maybe their subconscious brain, and when they lay down at night goes, man, I should have folded my laundry. Now it's all wrinkled. My lawn looks like shit. In my personal opinion, I think that having peace at night when you lay your head down is highly, based on what you've done throughout the day. Like I have things that I want to do. So I think a product like that is going to be brilliant and help people to have a little bit more motivation. And at the end of the day, they've accomplished what they want to accomplish, and then they have peace of mind and they sleep better. So all these things tie in,